Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, people. Welcome to another episode. In fact, I have a feeling we could be running out of episodes very soon. But it's true though. How much more business can Liverpool do? Wow, we're going mad. Liverpool have bought another midfielder, people, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Doucoure Endo. Doucoure Endo is pretty much officially a Liverpool football player. Keith and Conroy are joining me for now. Omar is joining me in a little while. It's a weird kind of, as Keith says, today's a revolving doors carnage. Kind of show, I guess. That's the way of deciding it. I thought I'll open up and introduce the show and start the show. Keith, why is your lighting so dark today? Are you like being banished to a little attic somewhere because you've been misbehaving or something? What's going on?
Do you know what it is? Oh, thank you for the light. Part of it is that. Part of it is my tan. You see?
Oh, it's the tan. Oh, it's the tan. Because you've been away again. Because you've been on holiday, right? Go on.
Correct. This is the running theme for the Carnage show. Yes, I was in Marseille. I was trying to wrap up some business for us, but some of the agents just didn't want to listen. My partner hates me and almost threw my phone in the sea. Yeah, almost threw my phone in the sea. I could not get away from Twitter for the entire time that I was on holiday. So damn you, Casado and Lavia. But it's fine because Grizz, I'm pumped up with endorphins.
Okay.
That's good.
See, the thing is, right, unfortunately, I won't be able to stay for the remainder of the show because I've managed to make a right cock up of my schedule today. So, but who gives a shit about me? It's all about Endo, our new midfielder, the latest acquisition. Guys, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, all of that formality stuff, but it's good stuff. There's 200 of you already in here. Let's start whacking up those likes. Subscribe if you haven't. If you want to hear expert analysis on all things Endo, and you're thinking, what the fuck is Conroy? Right? No, I'm being honest, innit, guys? Like, come on, let's call
I agree with you.
Get Absolutely. It? Like we're gonna have people tuning in and thinking, yeah, we're gonna get some deep insight into Endo. Like, what is this guy about? NFC our mugs, right? Don't panic. We have got Bence Bolsack coming on. You guys already know, the writer for LFC.com. Fantastic writer. And he's been speaking to former coaches of the said player, of our new midfielder. And our very special guest for tonight is Andy Brassell. If you don't know who Andy Brassell is, go and check out all things European football, especially Bundesliga. He'll be joining us from 9:30 onwards. Until then, we're going to give our opinions, our very amateurish layman reactions, opinions. We've got young Omar to give his excited opinion as well. Like and subscribe before. I like some of the. Keith, you started off with a good pun. This one's not a bad one. Evening, lads. What you're saying, Grizz? Another 1 or 2 game. That's not a bad one. Yeah, Total Eclipse. I don't know if he's copying him, but comes out with a similar one as well. None of your business says, I can't wait for the end of this transfer window. Yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah,
people are There's no Big Six tonight. I'm going to be jumping on there in about 15 minutes, guys. Relax, calm down, no problem. But listen, hit the like on your way in. We're never going to hear the end of this Mark Y word. Brilliant. Let's get as many puns as we can tonight. That's what I'm about. Get the puns in. Love to Keith, Connor, and Grizz. Big up the panel chat. Grizz, I'm depressed, bro. I'm depressed. Why? Why are you depressed, bro? Come on, man. What's the matter with you? Why are you depressed? Oh, God. Grizz, panel chat. Liverpool in trouble, Wolves. Calm down. We're not. You know. Endo is clear of Lavi and Casado. Look,
that's the
Conroy, we have bought third midfielder. How was your... Can I just get your natural reaction when you found out the news? Totally out of the blue. No one knew about this. No one knew had an inkling. Big George struck. Big George has finally laid a marker on the transfer window with his German connections. He's managed to prize away Endo from Stuttgart, 30-year-old Japanese captain, Stuttgart captain. What was your reaction, though? Be honest with me. Me and you are honest. You can be honest with me.
Yeah, no, we'll be honest. And the chat would know if I was lying anyway, because I'm not very good at it. So, but what I would say is, you mentioned it was like out of the blue. what did we say last week or on Sunday? We mentioned, and the kind of theme on social media after the crazy week last week was Liverpool used to just get their business done, and there'd maybe be exceptions to the rule, but 9 times out of 10 you'd find out on the day or the night, night of, it'd come out of nowhere. That's kind of like this transfer. It's been done in the shadows, if you will, to get it over the line. Now, I know it's not the most high-profile transfer, but that's what it kind of reminded me of. Seen it, a few hours earlier or last night, sorry, and that's it basically done. So that was quite refreshing to not have your laundry airing for everyone on social media and the football world to see. So that was actually quite a nice thing. My first original thoughts on it, I feel like I've said throughout this transfer window, and most people will agree, we need depth. That is one thing we definitely need. We've let Milner go, Henderson, Fabinho, Ox, Keita. We need depth in midfield. So I was all for it, to be honest. I know it's not a luxury signing. It's not, your headline signing, but I from what I've looked into, following the news, I feel like it's one of those signings that will bring depth to the squad that we badly need. So I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest.
Yeah, look, people are obviously coming in and
still going with the puns, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you see some good ones, bring it in. I mean, Imran is saying endorphins. I think you're second to that one. Keith's got you on that one. Well, actually, you might have said it before. Keith might have copied you actually.
No.
I don't trust you, brother.
I'll be taking who Keith follows on Twitter later. Just
I don't trust you, brother. Football Endomania, the new nation. Hendo to Endo, we move.
I'll tell you what, that Hendo to Endo, if you had Hendo on your shirt, that's a really cheap change. You're laughing. Take the H off. Carry on.
Job done. Feel off the H. Endo, Philip H. Big up Philip H. Sends her the first super chat of the night. A Newcastle resident fan says Endo is a class player. Klopp said he wanted a Milner type signing, one that wouldn't be popular. He'll be one that wouldn't be popular. And I don't think he would say that, but he'll be great. But a main DM is still needed at LFC. Keith, I don't think anyone's denying the fact that we still await and we hope and we pray and we kind of hope. Nothing ever certain with this club, but we're hoping he's right. A main DM does come. But your reactions before we get into everything else, what was your reactions when you find this out? And was you back from holiday, or was this one of those ones you found out on holiday?
No, I was back from holiday by then, and complete shock. I was just like, who? Sorry, excuse me. I didn't realize. Never heard of him in my entire life up until now. I can't say that I've watched Stuttgart heavily. Done a lot of research on him since, and I've got a lot of questions to ask some of the more expert panels that are coming on later.
Exactly. I mean, look, you can ask me and Conroy. We can discuss it, but we'll give you but the experts, by the way, people, because people are coming in. There's coming up to 450 already in here. People are thinking, yo, where's the experts on this show? I thought we're going to get some deep insight. They're coming. Yeah. Give us about half an hour, they're coming.
We're just going to give you the
build up.
The fan. Yeah, how you, the fan, we all reacted the same way.
Exactly.
Right at the end of the day, see what I did there? Right at the end of the day, he is another body in midfield, and it's a body that we desperately need. Right. So once we kind of got over the question of who, what, where, when, why, how did this all happen? The second question is, how does fans of the Bundesliga react? That was kind of my next thing, right? Because when we signed Artemelo, for example, I felt that people were kind of like talking about what he did 2-3 years ago, and that really concerned me. Everyone was still mentioning what he did at Barcelona. No one spoke about his Juventus time. All called it a flop, injury prone, etc. So I was worried from the get-go with Melo. But the reaction that I got from Bundesliga Twitter really gave me a sign that says, interesting. Have we done a Liverpool here and unearth something that could actually turn out to be a lot more exciting than we think it would be. So, yeah, I mean, that reaction really stuck to me. So, from who, what, where to, But to your point, it's not like, yo, this is the big signing, this is the big DM signing. The marquee still needs to come. The polls are there to put up the marquee, and I think that Endo is part of the polls to put up the marquee.
That's quite a good way of pointing, I guess, Conroy, the way Keith's talked about, I was on 90 Minutes this morning and I was asked a very similar question. And you know what I said? And it's the boring, generic answer, but it's the truth. I think it's the truth. Tell me otherwise. So obviously yesterday we hear and Twitter blows up, and I was doing sarcastic overly positive ones, just to wind up people even more. Like, yes, fire emojis and this and that. But because the other extreme emotions was to say, what the fuck is going on? Who is Endo? I can't believe it. This is the Endo of Liverpool. This is the, do you know what I mean? This is it. Who is this guy? Oh my God, we're bringing it. We don't, like, first and foremost, I'm guaranteed in my head and 100% sure 95% of these people that were absolutely going mad didn't have a clue who he was, hadn't seen any footage of him, didn't watch the World Cup, didn't know about the history about this player, what kind of impact he was. And then what happened was, so when you don't know nothing, okay, let's take each other. When you have a toothache, for example, and you don't know what's causing it or you don't know how to fix it, what do? You either go and see someone who's in the field of expertise of, toothaches, or you read up on it yourself. What do you do? Anything. Arm ache, shoulder ache, leg pain, anything. Your cooker's gone bust, you go and see it. What do you do? So you go to the people of knowledge, the people that do know, before saying, oh, I know about this toothache. Oh, I knew it's going to happen to me. Can't believe it, I'm going to die. But that's what people are doing, right? They got a toothache. I'm going to die now. That's it. I knew it.
That's it. Game over. That's it.
Game over.
Game over.
Life-threatening. Yeah.
Oh,
Until you read up on it, until you go to see it, and then calm down. It's not a problem. We can fix this. This is that, blah, blah, blah. So I started listening and reading people of knowledge. And I'm not joking, guys. I don't know about you guys. I haven't seen a bad review about him in terms of he's not the one, he's not great. He's we welcome Ben to the stream, guys. Fear not, insight, expertise.
That was brilliant timing, because Ben can answer that question.
Because Ben, we were making mad analogies, all sorts of analogies, because and I said, and one of the first people I went to, again, brilliant timing, was Ben, and I read his articles on it and what the people he's spoke about this player. And he's so highly thought of. His reputation is so good. Every article I read, every pundit's review, ex-players, coaches, he's got such a solid reputation. And I guess, first and foremost, welcome to the stream, Ben. How are you doing?
Yeah, nice to be on. How are you guys doing?
We're all right. We were just trying to gauge our initial reactions as fans of Liverpool Football Club reacting to another signing, yet it not being the most glamorous of signings. So how does the fan react when you hear like that? And I was saying, when you react to a signing, you either know about him and the world knows about him and the media and he's in the spotlight and you're excited, or it's a mystical signing, quite unknown, unless you're a Bundesliga diehard or a Japanese national team follower or a J-League back in the day follower. You won't have heard of him. And if you haven't, I tend to think before making rash, reactionary, emotional evaluations on him, you do your homework. And you obviously are one of those that has done homework. Tell us, when you found out about the signing and reaction, what was your reaction? Because you're far more learned than us. So we've given our amateur layman's reactions, what we thought. Give us your reaction when you found out Liverpool are signing Endo.
Well, first of all, I think having kind of followed the Bundesliga data-wise, he's always someone who's stood out. I remember doing a graphic for First Time Finish, which was my sort of website back in the day, and I designed a graphic where he he made the most tackles and interceptions within the first few months of his debut Bundesliga campaign, and that graphic already stood out to me. So after that, I kind of kept my eye on him. I kept my eye on Japan at the World Cup, which I think he had a tremendous tournament in the World Cup, and he was really good, particularly against Germany, but also against Croatia. And I think just all of those moments and experiences, having seen him at that tournament, I kind of knew he would be someone who could suit Liverpool, but I always discarded him because of his age. We don't sign 30-year-olds. Liverpool don't do that kind of business. I think then, obviously, Klopp's comments came out in, I think, mid-July in his first press conference when he's talking about needing experience, needing someone to kill games off like James Milner. And to be honest, Wataru Endo is that kind of player. He's kind of the first sort of name that comes to mind when it comes to experience and killing off games. I think he is going to be a vital squad player for Liverpool. I think it's a really good move. Since then, obviously, the news came out. I spoke to someone at Stuttgart who knows him well. He's a Japanese goalkeeper academy coach who was he moved to Stuttgart a year before, and he kind of welcomed him in and showed him the ways around the club, and they lived close to each other, and they said they became like family. And on a personal level, he gave a lot of promising feedback as well in terms of his character and mentality. He just seems like an all-around nice guy. And, you know, I think when the fans give you the nickname Legendo, I think that says everything about him. So, you know, he does seem like a quality player, but a quality character as well. And that's exactly what Jurgen Klopp likes, doesn't he?
You've nailed it. Quality character, quality player, you know, some brilliant insight there. As we welcome young gun Omar to the stream. Omar, welcome to the stream. Thank you very much for taking time out from one of your wild weeks. No doubt. It's been a little while. But guys, this is at that point where I really, really must apologize to Ben, and obviously to Andy. I'll message him in a little while. Unfortunately, I will have to go elsewhere for a little while. I double booked myself, the absolute amateur that I am. But I have no doubts. I'm leaving you in the capable hands of Conroy and Keith to co-host. We have Ben giving us valuable insight, and we have Andy Brassell. If you don't know who he is, you've still got about 15, 20 minutes to go and Google who Andy Brassell is. Fountain of knowledge, who will be joining us alongside Bence and the amateurs that are Conroy, Keith, and Omar. But no doubt, we need a combination of expert analysis and fan analysis, right? Because that's what makes it. Ben, I'm going to catch you in a bit, my friend. Thank you very much. We'll catch up in a little while. I double booked. I'm an amateur. Yeah, I'm an amateur. Have a go at me. This is Carnage. I'm out. Conroy, Keith, Omar. Elmer, anything to say before I go to my face in case you say on my back?
No, I've just come on. I've been roasted for about 2 minutes. So I might log back off and log back on in like a minute. Just the quicker you go, the better. So I'm gonna get Conroy to do a proper introduction for me. So yeah.
Guys, enjoy the stream, people. Nearly 600 of you in here. Smash, like, subscribe. Make sure you go and check out Ben Bosak stuff. Make sure his stuff is in the description. Go and check him out on all the socials. He's doing great work and he's going places. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have him every time he's on the show. So make sure you go and check him out and support his work. Conroy, Keith, I'll leave it in the capable hands of yourselves. How do you say bye in Japanese? I got to learn this shit. Anyone know? Oh, my quick Google.
I don't want to say anything wrong, but is it arigato?
That sounds right to me. Arigato? Is it? No one knows?
We'll go with that.
No, it can't be.
What, say it?
It's either hi or it's either greeting.
Oh, no, people are saying sayonara.
Sayonara.
Yeah, sayonara.
Okay, sayonara. Okay, sayonara. Peace, guys. Enjoy the show. See you in a bit.
See you guys.
Now, that might have been the end of Grizz, but it's not the end of the stream.
He's been holding that.
I'm here all day, all week. I'm here all week.
I've listened to this for about 5 minutes and there's been about 10 puns, man.
Yeah, I know. We shouldn't have started that fire. Ben, if you missed that, we've been doing puns for about the first 10 minutes, and I think Keith has still won it with endorphins. Endorphins, I think, is the winner so far. That's right up there. But Keith, I don't know if you wanted to just jump in if you had any other questions for Ben on, obviously.
Yeah,
but before we do that, just one last thing. I can't believe we missed the obvious pun, though. It's like you literally could say, "What are you on about?" You know, what you could do that one, but that's not as popular. I just wanted to get that out of the way. I'll let you take the question now, Keith.
Well, if you let me tell you that apparently he's just like Makaleli, then maybe you could have used that pun. What are you on about? But Ben, I've got a question. I know you mentioned the World Cup. what was it about the World Cup in particular that stood out to you for Endo, and what kind of qualities are you seeing in him that he's going to bring straight into this team?
I think it was his defensive discipline. I think in both, if I'm correct, he definitely won the most duels in the Germany game, and he was close to it in the Croatia game as well, which stands out for a midfield player. He just put his body about, lots of energy, lots of running, and obviously those games, I don't know if you guys remember, but they were very sort of Germany in possession, trying to attack, and Japan having to do a lot of defending. So for me, he really stood out in his defending and the way he was able to win balls and succeed in duels. And, obviously Germany didn't have a successful World Cup, but they still have world-class players. And I think that kind of stood out to me. And Croatia's the same. I mean, he was up against the likes of Luka Modric, Kovacic, and etc. And he did really well in that game as well. Japan were really unfortunate not to get that result against Croatia in the round of 16. They crashed out on penalties. I think Minamino missed one of those penalties, unfortunately. But yeah, based on that tournament, I think I really liked what I saw. And obviously, like I said, I didn't think he would end up at Liverpool because of his age. But I think he's a really good fit based on the tournament and based on what he's done in the Bundesliga. I think what is important to highlight as well is he, out of midfielders in the Bundesliga, he played the second most minutes. And, that's what you want from someone who is a James Milner replacement, essentially. He's always available. I think since he's moved, he had a couple of injuries in his early career when he was in Japan, but since he's moved to Europe, he's rarely missed a game. He's always been available, both in Belgium and Stuttgart, and I think that bodes really well for Liverpool.
Excellent. Sorry, Keith, on you go.
Go on.
No, I was just going to add as well. Just obviously, I actually, funnily enough, Japan done fantastic in that World Cup. But I did remember you mentioned the penalty shootout. It is one of the things that you reflect back on of, like, it was a very poor standard, the penalty shootout. But I think it kind of, because that was the last thing in your mind of that tournament, I think it can't be forgotten how good Japan were. Like, I think they really did outplay any expectations they had. They're phenomenal. But just on that as well, Ben, I just wanted to ask quite quickly, see with regards to the strength of the player, see from your point of view, what would you say his biggest strengths are, and maybe in Germany specifically with Stuttgart and the current system he played last year?
I think it's just reading the game, his interceptions, his energy, winning balls, which is, I wrote an article on Liverpool.com today. It's like, that's literally what Liverpool has been missing all season. Last season, we didn't have that kind of player. Unfortunately, Fabinho just dropped off last season. He wasn't himself. And I think that's what he'll bring. But I think it's important to note, when I was talking to the Japanese goalkeeping coach who watched him at Stuttgart for 4 years and who worked at Stuttgart and knows him well, he kind of highlighted, like, watch out for his offensive qualities as well, because he's quality on the ball and he is someone who can create chances. And I think against either in the Croatia or the Germany game, he did also create the most chances in the game. I know it's just a couple of games and we keep referring back to those games, but overall 11 goal contributions from all competitions last season for Stuttgart. I sort of facetiously posted about his last 3 games for Stuttgart in competitive action before moving to Liverpool. 2 goals, 2 assists. I mean, he's kind of coming in at the right time. It almost seems like he's not a holding midfielder, but he absolutely is. But he's just got that sort of quality in terms of going forward. And I think a lot of his goals he gets from set pieces. What I really like is his reaction time. He's not the tallest, but he reacts to, like, the second loose balls really quickly, and sometimes he can win the first balls as well. And then if you look at pretty much a lot of his goals, they're scored from those sort of situations when there's a set piece, it's cleared, and he's the first onto the ball and he reacts and he gets a goal. So I think in terms of Liverpool being a really strong team when it comes to set pieces, we scored the most goals from set pieces last season in the Premier League, joint with Fulham. Now we've got Dominic Szoboszlai, who's also really dangerous from set pieces. I think that's something to keep an eye on as well.
one of the things that's not been mentioned is the evolution of this Liverpool midfield has gone from workhorse-like to workhorse, but with a lot more technical ability. That's something that really stood out with the Endo clips. We're not just talking about something that we've all been crying out for on this very channel. Someone that's more competitive, someone that's more physical, someone that likes to tackle, someone that enjoys the art of defending. Right? We've been calling out for this literally for the past 2 and a bit years, as we saw Fabinho fade. But now you're also getting someone who's actually technically pretty sound on the ball as well. I went back to watch a clip from Japan and Germany, and one of the chances set up was a crossfield pass from Endo as if he was Thiago himself. But Omar, the age keeps coming up. Now, as a young buck like yourself, who hasn't reached the dizzy heights of 30 yet, what is your opinion of what's going to happen to you as a man when you become 30? And what is your opinion of 30-year-old footballers? Because there was an old thing we used to do on this channel, which was always refer to James Milner by his age. And now it seems that we may be having to do the same thing with Endo, 30-year-old Wataru Endo. What is your opinion on this debate, particularly coming from someone a few years younger? And does that matter in today's football?
Yeah, Keith, for me, I think you know my opinion. It's look, by the time I hit 30, I'm probably on the decline just because of just because of my diet, everything. I'm not training day in, day out. I'm not living the life of a professional footballer. And maybe you'd say 20, 30 years ago, as you hit 30, you're on the decline. But I think it just takes a bit of common sense, a bit of logic nowadays to say and see footballers when they hit 30. It's not FIFA. Their stats don't go down. Whatever you want to say, it's that's almost them coming into their prime. You've got numerous examples. You've got, and I'm not saying he's on the quality level of like the likes of Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, all these sort of guys, but the way footballers are actually allowed to sort of keep themselves fit, and the nutrition, the diet, the way they're looked after. For me, I see a 30-year-old. I'm like, yeah, he's got at least 3-4 top years left in him. The numbers are there in terms of how fit he is. He seems to be a machine. His stats suggest he is a machine. So for me, I just think it's a lazy argument just to say, yeah, he's 30. Why are we signing a 30-year-old? One, we can't just sign a team of under 23s because that's what the under 23s are for. And secondly, there's no denying it. We've lost Henderson, Milner, Fabinho, guys who are 29 plus and have arguably were our 3 most experienced midfielders. So you can't just replace that and expect under 23s to just walk in and take the mantle. You might need a few captains in there. You might need a few leaders. You might need guys who've done the hard yards in their career. And to me, that's what Endo's done. So look, I think there's always a bit of panic about signings when you don't really know who the signing is. But what I'd say is just do a little bit of research. Just sort of look at the stats. Look at how that individual's performing. If he's had numerous injuries up until 30 and they're only going to get worse and worse, then you'd be like, oh, bit of a strange signing. But from what I know, he's missed like 2 games or something in the last 2 seasons or whatever. It's something ridiculous like that. So unless there's a batch of really bad luck to him, seems like a really smart signing to me. So I'm sure that will make you boys a bit happier talking about 30-year-olds and a lack of decline. I know Keith, you're coming into your prime, but yeah, for me, it's no big problem.
I think I want to add 2 things onto that as well. Is if you look at the minutes he's played 22,000 around-ish, 22,000 career minutes overall. If you look at Fabinho's minutes, who's a year younger, he's played about almost 15,000 more minutes Fabinho has played than Endo. So, technically he's probably more sort of in his prime or he hasn't burnt out as much because he hasn't had to face a lot of European football, unlike Fabinho. So I think that plays into it as well. And on top of that, I kind of wanted to speak about the sort of Japanese diet. It's a really healthy diet. It's notorious for, Japanese people are known for living longer and fit and being fit for longer. And if you look at some of the Japanese players like King Kazu, who's playing until he's 56 years old, still going strong in professional football. Shinji Nakamura, who was a Celtic legend, I think he retired around the age of 43, 44. So a lot of Japanese players can play until a lot longer and have a long longevity in terms of their careers, and I think that's kind of important to highlight as well.
No, absolutely. I think that's. I'm still trying to get over that stat you just produced about the. I've wrote it down there about the how many more minutes Fabinho had played. That's why Ben is on. That is why the difference between the layman and people who actually are aware of the situation. If you needed any more convincing, which I'm not sure you do, but that is right there. That is fair play. That is a fascinating stat. So I think that kind of adds to it as well. With you talk about, you said in their peak, Ben, but to me, it's like when I hear that sort of information, I feel they're fresher. They're going to be. You mentioned the European football. I feel like even Rodri, best DM in the world right now, he mentioned a couple of weeks ago about he doesn't feel like he can play 60 games anymore. So if you think about he's at the absolute pinnacle right now, and he's saying that, it just shows you a footballer who's maybe not had that, who definitely hasn't had that amount. It's quite interesting. So I think it's a brilliant way to look at each signing or player on a case-by-case basis. And I think, let's be honest, I think in general with the evolution of football and just fitness-wise and everything included with that, I think that's improving constantly as well. So I agree. I think just to add to everyone's point about 30 being old anymore in football, I think the game is changing slightly, especially when you have people like James Milner, as we mentioned. But on that as well, Ben, I wanted to ask you something with regard to, I had a little note because you mentioned the goal scoring. It seems that his goal scoring's actually improved, because from my stats, I think it's 12 and 99, and you said about 11 in the last year. So that's obviously improved a lot. But I wanted to ask you on the discipline side of this player, because I've not had the chance to do a massive debrief on him, but I did realise one of the comments was about he doesn't go to ground too often, so therefore has a better effect on his amount of yellow cards he's picking up and discipline on the field.
I think, yeah, that's definitely a kind of feature of his game. I think it helps that he's relatively quick, so he doesn't have to go to ground. Yeah. And I think he reads the game quickly as well, so that also helps. I think we don't really see Fabinho go to ground in his prime. Very rarely did we see him make a crunching tackle. I mean, we all remember the Barcelona one, which was a great challenge. But I think overall, I think the best holding midfielders are the ones who don't go to ground, who can win the ball before you even have to make a tackle and read the game and make interceptions. I think, I can't remember who said that about defenders.
It's Maldini. It's Maldini. He says, if I go to ground, I've already made my first mistake. But I'm not comparing him to Maldini. Before we clip that up there, Ben, and you laugh. But yeah, it's a very good point. Sorry, keep on. You're going to ask.
I can't you said it. He's the DM Maldini now, clipped up, ready to go.
Yeah, DM Maldini. Yeah, no, I know.
We already have the Maldini in our team in that Phillips anyway. So
yeah, that's very true. Who else does a Zidane turn at the San Siro like that in his own box? That's fair enough. But Keith, have you got any other questions from your side of things for Ben?
Yeah, I suppose where is he fitting in? I mean, what do you guys see? And I'll throw this out to everybody now and the chat in terms of what would the most logical midfield look like now? I mean, does Endo come in and give more freedom to the likes of Dom and Mac to kind of be more expressive in further forward positions? Do we look at maybe, being a bit more conservative with double pivots and put Endo next to a Thiago or Baccetic and maybe play one of the two? I mean, all of a sudden, one signing creates many, many options. I'll be curious to get everybody's feelings in terms of what you think the best mix will be now that Endo's in the club. Ben, I'll go with you first.
I think he can play as a single pivot, especially with McAllister and Szoboszlai, because they have so much energy. We saw that with Szoboszlai, the way he came back and covered for Alexander-Arnold against Chelsea. I think that was a breath of fresh air to see from him. We didn't really see that a lot from Liverpool's other midfielders last season. So in that sense, I'm not worried in terms of him playing the sort of DM role. But I think it's really interesting that you mentioned the sort of double pivot. I think that could be a feature of Liverpool's game now, especially with Bajcetic and maybe him and Endo or him and Thiago. It could be a really interesting sort of formation for Liverpool, because Endo has played in a double pivot before. He's played as a single CDM. He's done both of those roles. And on top of that, I think obviously it hinges on a new arrival as well, what his role is and where he'll play, because I think if Liverpool bring in another CDM, there's a lot of talk about Doucoure, who I'm a big fan of. I like him a lot. Then obviously I think his role changes a little bit. Then I think I would see him being maybe a starter in the Europa League, and maybe not necessarily starting with the likes of Thiago, the likes of McAllister, but maybe Bajcetic, Tyler Morton or Bobby Clark and those kind of players. And I think if those are that's the team we're going to play out in the Europa League. I mean, it remains to be seen, because it also depends on the draw, what kind of draw we get. There's potential to get some really strong teams. There's the potential to get some not so strong teams. So it all depends on the draw. But if they do decide to bring out a sort of inexperienced, younger side, I think having Endo in there as the holding midfielder to dictate the midfield, to give the likes of Bobby Clark, maybe Harvey Elliott, the freedom to express themselves, I think could be really key as well in terms of our early Europa League success and even in the latter rounds. Obviously, I think he's just key in terms of if we have another DM, Doucoure is playing, let's say, let's play with that. He would be really ideal to bring on at the end of a game like Milner, to form a double pivot with sort of Doucoure, and to offer protection and kill off games and go all sort of full defensive mode.
But I mean, you make a great point, right? And that is the question on everybody's lips. Is there going to be another DM signing? But Conroy, we've got Endo, you've got Thiago, you've got Bajcetic. Is there any space? Should we be going after another DM? Should we be putting that money more towards a fresh new centre-back? Or are we still light with only Endo, McAllister and Szoboszlai being our only signings to complement Thiago, Bajcetic, Elliott and Jones?
Yeah, I think it's not going to be a surprising answer. I think I think a lot of us would agree that we are light still. And like I said at the start of the show, and you probably missed this at the start of the show, Ben, but I mentioned I think in general we've let a lot of midfield go. So any midfield, even if it's not that luxury signing like this signing, it's not the headline signing. I'll go back to what I said. I think it's important we get our depth up in that position in general. So for me, we need more signings on that. You've mentioned Doucoure there, which I think it's been quite interesting the last couple of days. The amount of research you do into him, it seems to get more like not a no-brainer, but it seems like it may be a good end to a troubling transfer window, if you know what I mean. It might be that kind of not your get out of jail free card, but it might be make it a good transfer window instead of what it has been so far, up and down. But I would say on that, for me, Keith, I think the great thing about this player is you'd mentioned the versatility and flexibility, like Ben had just mentioned there. But it's quite surprising as well when you look into his stats. And listen, we're going to get Andy on soon, which is he'll break that down even more. But you think about he can play in centre. He's played most of his career centre back. That doesn't mean he's not played a lot at DM, but he has played like convincing numbers, not just a Jordan Henderson amount of numbers for 4 games in a Club World Cup, if that's correct. I think
I would like to add on the centre back that he hasn't played that. He's very rarely played that in Europe. So over the last 5 years, he's only played that in Japan, which I think is interesting because he's not really proven at a European level. And obviously, Japanese football is different. But I think the more interesting part is the right back for me, because he's also played a lot of his time at right back in Japan. And I think maybe in this European football in the Premier League, I could kind of see him fitting into the right back role more. I think that could be an interesting proposition.
And I think is what I was just going to end with there as well, Ben. I feel like even though you definitely make a great point of being in Japan, but you feel like you've got someone who, you know, if we're getting a bad situation like we have in the past, like the midfield situation a couple of years ago, where we know there's someone who can do a job there, and I feel like even play, I think he's played 35 times in the number 8 position. Even that, let's say you get a serious injury or someone's out for a few games, you know you can do a job there, and I think, as a fan, you feel more calm with that when that's the situation, when it's like you've got a completely new project. Even Jones playing as a number 6, like we've been impressed with parts of that, but ultimately that's a new position for him. It's not as if he's played in the academy, that position. So I think to even have some experience, it helps. So to add to Ben's point there, but again, the right back one, that's one to think about as well. I do think his flexibility has went into this signing. It's very interesting, and it's the more we talk about it, the more it makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you guys all agree with that.
Sounds like
I think the fact that excites me the most is I saw it on Twitter that Jurgen Klopp, every time he's won a league title, whether that be in Germany, whether that be in the Premier League, he's had a Japanese player, and now we have another one. So,
and not just that, it sounds like by his flexibility, Trent Alexander-Arnold might have a new security guard to complement Konate, who looks like he's been defending 2 players at once ever since Trent's been into this position against Chelsea as well. And Omar, you know, flexible, played in multiple positions, tenacious, defensive-minded, great on the ball. What's everyone complaining about? Surely this signing right here is a masterstroke, or are you of the opinion that this is a panic buy? You know, this is the 4th choice. This is Liverpool in a burning house trying to just salvage something from what has been a topsy-turvy transfer window.
To be honest, mate, that's a good question. It's one of those where if we did get our primary targets, we probably aren't getting him in. But it doesn't necessarily mean it is a panic buy. We've not sort of come out of the whole Caicedo and Lavia situation and essentially just gone, right, what's the next thing we can get to replace them to? It's like, oh, how can we approach this in a different way? And assuming it is Endo and someone else, maybe we're looking at, right, if we can't get one player in, let's try and get 2 who can sort of do that job. We get someone who's experienced and someone who is young, like a Doucoure or whoever. That sort of comes in. So for me, everything points to it being a smart decision. Everything points to him having some sort of cult hero status. It reminds me of a bit of Lucas Leiva in a way, in terms of you probably don't fancy it on paper. And I understand people. Well, I don't understand people losing their heads because they see a name they don't know and they all of a sudden just go, yeah, well, he can't be good, can he? Well, logically, why are we in for him? Why don't you do a bit of research? Why don't you see what he's like as a player? I don't know, watch a few videos, see the stats before you make that assumption. See him play before you make that assumption. I just think it's a pathetic way to sort of not live, but sort of look at things. So yeah, on the Trent thing, the fact he's played right back, we've needed that sort of foil for Trent to sort of let Trent express himself without having to constantly come back on a counter, sort of help Konate out, who's having to, like you said, do 2 jobs. So it seems smart to me. We won't know that until he starts playing, but for me, everything points to it being a smart Klopp signing. And if I'm being honest, we need them because that's our identity in a way. It's always been Liverpool's identity to just say to get these players under the radar. You know, the Wijnaldums, the Robertsons that everyone looks at on first sight like, I don't know about that. And then half a season in, everyone loves Endo. So yeah, I'm just excited to see what he does. And like I just want to touch on the Japan point. If we like Ben says, if we go back to that World Cup, all the rave, it was Japan was everyone's favorite second team, right? It was you support your national team, and then it's Japan, and it's because they were this flying attacking team that had 4 or 5 attackers on the pitch. But you don't win games, you don't get through a group of Spain and Germany, the group of death, by just being the attacking team. So I looked at that, and as soon as we were in for him, I was like, oh, was he in that Japan team? Who was sort of anchoring that midfield? And shock horror, it's Endo. And I sort of find similarities in their style of play to what we want to try and do, with being quite gun-ho, having sort of red arrows approach to our football, and we need that stability in midfield. And if he can provide that in any sort of way, then it has to be smart. So yeah, for me, Keith, right now it's looking smarter than it is looking more of a panic buy.
Just to jump in, Keith, quickly. Thanks for that, Omar. Ben, I know you have to leave just now, so just thanks again for your input's been fantastic, and we'll let you head away now. But thanks again, always a pleasure. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, pleasure to be on, and yeah, hopefully we get some more signings on, and I can come on and then talk about them. Hopefully that's the quarry. So hopefully we'll see each other again soon. All right, catch you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye.
Cheers, Ben.
Just a reminder as well to check out, as Grizz mentioned earlier, Ben's article's fantastic. You follow him on social media, absolutely superb. But yeah, following that, we'd like to introduce a warm welcome to Andy Brassell. Andy, thanks very much for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure to get you on. I'm personally a big fan, as I'm sure the other guys are as well. So thanks very much for coming on.
Hello, and now my face has appeared as well, which is a plus, isn't it? Or maybe it's a dreadful thing. I don't know. But thanks for having me anyway. I appreciate it.
No, that's great. Just before we get on with discussion, Grizz sent his apologies, and he actually double booked. I think he sent you a message as well. So he had another obligation tonight, but he's very apologetic for that, because he was desperate, like I am, and Keith and Omar, to discuss this topic with yourself. But he sent his apologies.
Okay. You got the professionals now.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. No, we have. Andy is a professional. We are very much the layman. Keith, very much the layman. All right. But I'll let Keith crack on now, since he wants to act as a professional.
Oh yeah. Well, you can rate me out of 10 after this. There'll be a Twitter poll, I'm sure. But thank you so much for joining us. And obviously, as we've said, we would not end the stream with Grizz going. We wanted to keep it going because obviously we've had some exciting news, and we would love to get your input on it. Doucoure Endo is on his way to Anfield, which has surprised everybody, surprised all the fans in the chat and obviously on the channel, because many of us didn't know who he was. Obviously you do, but even with all the knowledge you have of Endo, how surprised were you when it was announced that he'd be coming to Liverpool?
A little, I think, because you look at the levels of midfield reinforcement that they were looking at. I think when you look at the age of the players who they were looking at, this is something a little bit different. But for people to say it's an Artur move, that was always a crazy move, because you look at his fitness record. For example, before he joined Liverpool, Juventus were having trouble getting him on the pitch, let alone shifting him. So that was always a bit of a strange one in terms of the tempo of the way Klopp likes to play football. It didn't really seem to fit as well. Whereas Endo's a little bit different. Even if it's a name that's come out of left field, even if he's a little bit older than some of the other midfield options, which personally I don't think is a particularly bad thing, because they've lost a lot of experience in that midfield as well. Clearly the main issue for Liverpool last season was mobility in midfield. It was also slow and stodgy. They need numbers. They need leadership as well. And that's what he's really got. You're looking at a guy who's been captain of age group teams since he was a teenager, who is a real leader, who is someone who's continued to develop over the last couple of years. So since he's been at Stuttgart, he was actually a centre back before, and I know people will look at him and his size and say, well, that's a bit Lisandro Martinez end of the market. Well, of course, he's proved that he can be a very good centre back in the Premier League. So maybe that's an emergency for Liverpool down the line. But Pellegrino Matarazzo, the German Italian coach, German US coach, sorry, turned him into a defensive midfielder while he was at Stuttgart. Wanted to really use him as that all the time. Again, made him his captain, and he's just been great for Stuttgart over the last couple of years. Now, I was out in Germany at the weekend with Super Cup and Harry Kane type business, and spoke at length to Mario Gomez, who played with him at Stuttgart in his second spell at Stuttgart before he retired. And he said he's just the most dependable bloke, really, on and off the pitch. As I was saying on Sky earlier, Mario Gomez said to us, Endo's got 6 kids and he never appears ruffled, which I'm sure is something that would be amazing to most parents of even fewer kids.
That was on the Sky report.
Yeah, I bet. He's always calm in every situation. And I think that's what enables him to adapt, really, because he's someone who, I think they will use him in front of the defence to make tackles. He wins more headers than you would expect of someone of that size. He gets around the pitch. Last season, he was able to burst into the penalty box. He scored a few goals and got some assists as well, which I think shows you what a versatile footballer he is. But Liverpool, I don't think, are really going to want that from him, because he is a player who I think ended up bringing out that side to his game, because basically he was their best midfielder, but by a distance, and their most influential player. But for Liverpool, they'll want him to do a more specific job, and he's more than capable of doing that. And sometimes the player you need for your team is not the most expensive player; it's just the right player. And I think there's every sign that he could be that for Liverpool.
Just wanted to add to the fans who regularly watch this channel. We've had some debate about whether 5'10" is tall or not, and according to Evan, he was very upset. Yeah, when I said that 5'10" was the makeup of short kings, and so we would just like to say that 5'10" is what Endo's height is, and he is not a short king. He wins a lot of headers, and 5'10" is a good height. So
it's short for a centre back, but okay for a midfielder. Can we say? Yeah. Is that what we compromise on?
Yeah,
we're gonna have to compromise on that, or else Evan's gonna lose his head next time.
Yeah, it's Diogo Jota who causes the problem, isn't it? Because on Sunday he's the one he was actually dropped back in to head the ball clear from the set piece. He's that good at heading. I think he's caused a bit of an anomaly in our debates in the last year, Andy. As you can already tell, there's a bit of tension between Keith and Evan following that. But Andy, I actually just wanted to ask you on top of that as well, with the way Stuttgart play and their style and their system, how do you think it will be from a comparison point of view to the way Liverpool play, and like how do you feel that he'll fit in our system with his strengths from that?
It'll be different. It'll be way different for him, because Liverpool are a team that want to keep the ball and make the play. Stuttgart have been a struggling side for the last couple of seasons. And, if you go back to not last season, but the season before, so May 2022, Endo scores one of the most important goals in recent Stuttgart history. He scores a 94th minute winner, flying header at the back post against Köln, which keeps them up and sparks this massive pitch invasion. So, they're a very hand-to-mouth team. This will be different. But I think you're going to see changes to his game because of that. Because, like I said, he is very versatile. I think people, and I'm not blaming anyone for this. Like, when you're trying to find out more about a player, you go and you look at the raw numbers, and I think people will look at his numbers of hitting 80% of passes and think, well, that's not going to fly for Liverpool. This is a team that never had the ball, really. So I think it's completely different. He can pass the ball pretty well. He can pass the ball progressively well, which is important. He's not just going to sling it sideways, which I think is quite important. You want to bring it out in front of the defence as well. So I think as well as him having the tools to work, he will adjust his game accordingly as well. So he will want to change a little bit, and it's a brilliant opportunity for him, and one that he probably can't have expected, because whereas people who work with him know he's great, whereas he's respected in the Bundesliga, he's someone who I think with the best will in the world probably didn't expect a move to a club the size of Liverpool at this point. So it's something that's really great for him.
And on that point, we live in a world of, fan channels, fandom within Twitter. And the one thing that comes up all the time is Liverpool. Well, who else was in for him? Liverpool were the only team in for him, it seems. And, it gives off this perception that because Liverpool didn't get into a scrap in the same way that they did with Caicedo and Lavia, it almost reduces Endo's ability. Andy, did Liverpool really just, could George Schmidt have his first coup in a sense by being able to pull this off with his contacts and knowledge, or was it public knowledge that Endo was available to be picked up at the right price and Liverpool were the only team that pulled it off?
No, I think this has got Jörg Schmecker all over it, because clearly him and Klopp are well aware of Endo and the respect he has. Stuttgart were very much hoping not to sell him, and he's never rocked the boat. There was always the feeling that he's pretty happy there as well, and they were hoping to rebuild a younger team around him. Where Stuttgart are vulnerable is that they haven't really got that much money, so you've been able to make an offer that got in there quickly. And if we look at what Liverpool have been criticised for in the transfer market over recent weeks, is they've been accused of basically botching these deals, haven't they, for Caicedo and Lavia? But is it a botch if they never wanted to come in the first place? If they'd already promised to go to another club? I think Liverpool were having a try for those players, but I think they knew in both cases that it would be uphill, particularly with Caicedo. They knew that it would be uphill to try and get it done. That you don't not try and get deals done just because they might fail. You never make a transfer if that was the case. Whereas this, to me, appears to be more like an old Liverpool deal. I mean, you talked about the world we live in, and Twitter /X and fan channels, and the way we like to claw over rumours, and the way that stuff takes a long time to get done, mainly because there are so many intermediaries involved. The fact is, what Liverpool have done brilliantly in the transfer market over a couple of different sporting directors over the last 5 or 6 years is getting deals done without any fuss. Like when you think of Fabinho, for example, he was never really linked in the papers with Liverpool. It just happened. It just arrived. And he was a player who absolutely changed things for Liverpool until it all ran out of gas last season. So I think if we recall what has made Liverpool so good in the transfer market, it's the lack of saga, isn't it? It's the fact that this player's arrived and now we're going to go forward with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd mentioned that earlier. Like I think one of our biggest strengths was we used to operate in the shadows, or even like the Gakpo situation before, it was announced, or the night before it was done, instead of a saga that spans over weeks and months. I think that's absolutely spot on. And I think we all agree with that sentiment. Omar, I wanted to just check as well, give you an opportunity. Do you want to ask anything to Andy with regard to his expertise on this matter?
Well, yeah, I've probably got plenty of questions.
Not too many. Just one question.
It was more to do with his sort of, I guess we sort of have an idea of what he is like as a player, but more so on his character. Obviously, come from Stuttgart to Liverpool, the expectation, the sort of the style of play is completely different. In terms of, for one, you've said, Liverpool have to play with the ball. Stuttgart, you're sort of looking at nicking points away from home, sort of defending as a unit, all of that sort of stuff. Do you think he, as a character, because we know as Liverpool fans, especially on social media, the expectation is to hit the ground running and sort of set the standard. Do you think he can live up to that? Or do you think, because for me, I personally think he has the ability to get into this team and sort of settle down and be a reliable part and cog of the machine, but does he have that sort of mental aspects and that character to then say, yeah, I am a Liverpool player, I am someone that can hit the ground running and sort of dictate the tempo for such a big team?
Yeah, I think he can. Omer, and I don't think he's fazed by anything really. That's what you're looking for really, and even if it was something of an unexpected opportunity, he's a big time player. He's used to stepping up in the big moment. Some of the pressure that Stuttgart have had to face has been unbearable, and he's dealt with it. He's shown up in those big moments. Now, of course, this is a different sort of pressure, but I think if you ask most footballers, would you prefer bottom of the table pressure or top of the table pressure? I think you know what the answer is going to be, right? Yeah. So I think for him, this is something he's going to grasp. Like I said, he does have that versatility, and he's someone who takes on board a coach's instructions, who I think will respond to Klopp really, really well. So I think that's a positive as well. Look, he's like I said, he changed role when he arrived at Stuttgart for the good of the team. I don't think he's going to have to play a totally different role for Liverpool. Of course, there'll be a bit more with the ball, but I think really it's like, I suppose a comparison you could make between the way he played last season and the way he'll have to play with Liverpool is take Bruno Guimaraes being like one of Newcastle's first signings after they changed dimension, one of their first big signings. When Guimaraes arrives, he ends up like scoring that back heel against Southampton. He ends up making last passes. He ends up bursting into the penalty box and finishing goals off. And if you're a Lyon fan, which I might have sympathies in that direction due to where I used to live, you're looking at that and thinking, what? How did this happen? This guy's the piano carrier. You're not meant to do this. It's a little bit like when my youngest son started talking and my older one was like, no, you sit there and be cute. I'm the one who does the cool stuff, all right? No. And I think really, if everything goes right for Newcastle over the next little while, Bruno Guimaraes will go back to being the piano carrier. And this is a little bit like because they'll have more talented players in front of him. And maybe they're heading in that direction at the moment. Now, I think it's the same thing with Endo. He's a little bit more off the leash last season because he's playing in a limited team. So if he can contribute goals, if he can make late runs into the box, if he can provide assists, then that's great. That's really helpful. There are other players to do that at Liverpool. So he will go back to that bit where he's sitting in front of the defence.
No, I think that sums up very well. I think it's a very good question, actually, Omar. I think for me as well on that, it's as you mentioned earlier, Andy, where it's like you see it in a lot of teams, especially in maybe relegation battles, where it's like they're the best player at maybe one part, but because he's maybe all-rounder best player, they expect so much, to put so much pressure of everything when it is just that one task. And you've seen, it's when you mentioned that earlier about it doesn't always have to be expensive signing. Sometimes you just need the right player for the right role that you have vacated. And as I mentioned earlier, Liverpool have lost a lot in that midfield and we need the depth. So I think it's absolutely spot on. The other thing, my next question to you, Andy, just because I know you have to head off shortly, was a comparison question, but I think I know you just mentioned not necessarily with Bruno Guimaraes, but it was close enough there, so I don't want to have you repeating yourself. So, Keith,
so that's a great comparison that casts him in a very favourable light. So maybe you want to stick with that one. But
let's go even more favourable.
I'll think of something. One thing I would say is, of course, there's this speculation linking Liverpool with Sofiane Amrabat. They've asked about him, definitely. How far they're prepared to go, I really don't know the answer to that. Maybe we'll find out in the next little while. But for me, signing Endo doesn't rule out signing Amrabat as well, because I don't think you can sign any player for a key position and say, there you go, you're playing 58 games next season. That's just not reasonable in a modern climate. Also, Amrabat is a player who we've seen it in his best bits at Fiorentina. We've seen it in World Cup competition with Morocco. Here is a world-class player who, if he's available for a reasonable price, I think you have to go and get, not only to stop United getting him, but because he's someone who would add a lot. And I think if you tally it all up, I think every so often you need to have a look at those arrivals and departures to realise just how many midfielders have left Liverpool. I mean, it is like, I can't really think of another precedent for it. For a club at the top end of the Premier League or the top end of European football, where has there been such a massive turnover of a midfield in one summer? So you need bodies, especially because you're going to be going into the season looking to ride all those competitions to the very end.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because not only have Liverpool decided to completely gut their midfield, but they've also decided within the past 18 months to have a midfield rebuild at the same time as Real Madrid and Chelsea. So we've actually with some big clubs and some big players, and the timing of it has been pretty terrible. But I wanted to kind of just get on it with comparisons, as you a man of football for many years. Instead of a comparison between him and another current player, what would you say in terms of a comparison to a player maybe on the other side of, who's 30 and above, who a club has signed in the past? Many are looking at this and saying this could be a Gary McAllister style signing for Liverpool. Has there ever, because we spoke about it earlier, 30, seems to be an age where everybody seems to think that you finished, even though I will tell you right now that 30 is the new 20. Yeah. Never forget that. But how would you describe this in terms of signings that you've seen in the past and where this could be? And my second question is, could he have a mural in relation to your book?
Ah, nice. I like that. He's definitely getting a mural. There's no doubt about it. I think probably before Christmas, if there's any justice. The fact is, it won't be better than the Ian Rush one that you can see from Level 7. It's just not possible. That is just it hits the spot every time. That's the one for me. Maybe showing my age there, but look, I think in terms of, I think we can get really hung up on the age, because if you look at his fitness, his athleticism, the way he lives his life, it's not like he's 30 and going to be dropping off at 32, 33. He's extraordinarily fit, and I would bet my last quid on him still be playing top flight football when he's like 36, 37. He's that sort of nick. And I think if you look at the professionalism of all the Japanese players that have come to the Bundesliga, they go on and on and on. It's young, I would say, for a high class Japanese footballer. So it's not something to be concerned about at all. So I'm not even sure if we can put him, great as he was for Liverpool, I'm not sure if we can put it in the Gary McAllister Indian summer bracket at all. I just think that the age is noticeable because it's in comparison with the other players that Liverpool have been fencing for at this point. But yeah, I don't think it's the perfect comparison, really. I mean, in terms of other players that you could have been looking at to be doing that job, I think even though he's like 4 years younger, I don't think him and Amrabat are a million miles apart in terms of where they are in their careers. Look, Endo's got loads of experience. He's also got tons left in the tank.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's just fascinating chat, to be honest. And I'm just trying to get over the comment on Keith's obsession with 30-year-olds. He's mentioned that 5 times tonight. So he's mentioned 4 times before Andy came in. Yeah, so that's why. But listen, Andy, I really appreciate it. I know you came in for the time period and through the show. It's been absolutely fantastic to chat with you, and that was actually fascinating just sitting there and listening. So thanks very much for that. And I know you have to head away now. So for myself, thanks very much, and I'll let the guys have a little comment as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we cannot have you leave without me plugging your book, Football Murals, a celebration of soccer's great street art. And as a fan of Liverpool Football Club, we all love a mural. So definitely go check that book out. And thank you once again.
You'll find plenty in there. You'll find plenty in there. Yeah.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, Andy, I just wanted to echo the boys' thoughts. Big honour. I sent a message to Grizz actually today. As soon as I heard you were on, I was like, Grizz, get me on. And he was like, I've got no space. And he messaged me. I was like, Andy's one of my goats. So here we are. Yeah, so big pleasure having you on. And yeah.
Oh, thank you guys for the kind words. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for having me. And hope to see you at Anfield at some point this season.
Oh,
Definitely. Cheers, Andy. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
All right.
Yeah, that was it's just funny. Omar said that. It's like I was literally listening to Andy. You know, I was walking, you're going out for a run or just doing a cycle at the gym, and I was listening to Andy Brassell the other day, and it's quite funny. You know, sometimes it's a bit surreal. So that was absolutely outstanding. So I'm all there with you, Omar. It's I can imagine you texting because that was a bit like Evan the other week. With a certain guest. So if you could see our WhatsApp group, sometimes the chat would be laughing. And then Evan asked to come on the show and then just says Keith 5'10" is not a short king. So just full circle.
Exactly.
Full circle.
Andy, tall man. But what you don't know is that Andy was in the comments saying how excited he was to meet his hero, Conroy.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm sure
Let's get behind the scenes, huh?
Yeah, that's 100%. That's probably that's my burner account. Yeah, that's the private chat. You know, but listen, guys, that's actually been a great show. Sorry, but what I was going to say as well, is there anything else you both wanted to add? Because obviously, I feel like we've had a really good debrief and insight into this player today. I've got to be honest. I think that was fascinating to hear all the different insights. But is there anything else you wanted to add on this matter?
I think probably back to you boys. What next? Like, who next? What is your ideal end to the window? Because yeah, I still think there's business to do, and this Endo signing will sort of be looked back on, dependent probably on that business, whether that's fair or not. But that's the way it is. So yeah. Where next for you boys?
I just wanted to say that, you know, it has been an up and down transfer window. I think Twitter has become a hard place to be at sometimes because we get new names every single day of the week. And I encourage you many times, everybody who follows me on Twitter, to sometimes just log out because it will save you a lot of headache. But the one thing that I will say is, look, we have replaced some really, you know, big legends of the game with some really exciting technical players. And I think the way we played against Chelsea, particularly in the first 30 minutes, gives me an indication that, you know, that one, you know, marquee signing in the midfield, you know, clearly the money's there. Clearly we're looking for that midfield signing, be it Doucoure or be it a player that none of us are even thinking about right now. The one thing's for sure is that last gem, that last, you know, infinity stone, if you will, I think can really kick us into a really exciting season. I really like what Trent keeps saying, that we're actually going to go for the league title. And I think we've got a really fun, exciting new Klopp 2.0. So I hope that we get that gem, that marquee signing, that last midfielder. And I think it has to be a midfielder, to be honest. But when I look into the rest of the season, I would really want to start talking about tactics and less about transfers. So yeah, fingers crossed we get that done.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Keith, because the more you talk about transfers, you more you're delaying getting someone in, getting them prepared, getting used to the system. I think it's a big thing for Klopp. I think we've seen that with even his best players at times. We always go back to Fabinho, but Fabinho took about 3 months to get starting in this team. Maybe that's exaggerating, but it was at least 2 months. Like he did look a bit, not out of his depth, but he did look definitely off it his first couple of games because he couldn't quite judge the way the system and the pace should be in that role. So I agree with you. I think we want to get there. But as Andy mentioned and Ben mentioned, do you know what? Maybe it isn't the ones with the marquee signings we're hearing about. Maybe it is one that it's a sufficient good role, like a still a absolute, you know, adequate replacement, but it's maybe not one that we're hearing about every day in social media. I know that's maybe not going to happen, but that would actually be quite nice, because, to be honest, there's been far too much transfer of our related rumours than I think there's ever been. Would you guys agree with that? I don't think it's ever been to this extent
It's
before.
been day in, day out, hasn't it?
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah, crazy.
Like, it's almost like an addiction to the
It
transfer.
is.
I feel like I don't know. This is probably how like Chelsea fans feel in terms of like, oh, what's next? So yeah, it's almost like, can we just get back to being Liverpool, getting our business done? Because I just want to see us settled, squad ready. Bournemouth Saturday. Let's put about 10 past them. One of them sort of mindsets.
Yeah.
If Elon Musk realized how much traffic Liverpool transfer news generate, probably have a byproduct of some sort of like, X LFC or something like that, and just pepper us with transfer news every day. If you're a blue tick with a big following, you must have been laughing this year, because Jurgen Klopp usually always denies it, right? He always goes on record and says, no more signings, forget about it. And yeah, if something might happen, but he himself has been so bullish, which has meant that we have all been literally scroll. I can't tell you how many times I've refreshed. If you saw the hours I've put on X/Twitter on my phone, it's absolutely disgraceful. So yeah, it's terrible.
No, you know what? Yeah, see, the thing is, though, just on it, we've obviously discussed the transfer and that, but guys, but I have to add, social media, Twitter, this is actually the first time I'd say that I'm considering, as you said, Keith, taking a little break, just logging off, because it has got, not just with that saga, but I think it's everything in general this summer, between a mixture of that and other things. It can be quite an tense area, and I think, as you say, addiction. It's so funny that, mate, because when that was happening with Lavia and Caicedo, I found myself like checking my phone even more often. You mentioned that when you were on holiday, you subconsciously do it, and it becomes a bit of a habit. So I'm probably going to follow that suit to take a little break. But yeah, definitely that got a bit intense. We're talking about life philosophy now. But listen,
the fans need it.
Yes,
we're here for the fans, and we know that we're fans at the end of the day. And I'm sure everyone in the chat has felt exactly the same way. We're all diehard fans. We're here tonight. Don't log off YouTube though, because we've got plenty more shows to come.
Yeah,
we're not just.
Is this the start of a little movement? As soon as the windows close, we all just log off.
That's it. But on that, to the chat as well, thanks again for everyone for tuning in, and make sure you smash the likes. It does help a lot. Obviously, it gets the traction, so it's much appreciated as well. And obviously, thanks for tuning in, and thanks again to the wonderful guests, Ben Grizz, who was here at the start, and Andy Brassell. It really has been some show. But just to finish up, Keith, anything from yourself?
All good from me. Thank you so much for today. It's been incredible. The chat, as usual, you guys are incredible. Please like the stream on your way out. There's plenty more content to come, and this is a safe space. Whenever you want a safe space, we're here to talk, and hopefully everybody leaves as an expert on all things Endo. And now we can say that this is the end of the stream.
And I would have ended it right there, Keith, but I said I was going to let Omar finish if he didn't.
I wanted you to end it there.
I know.
Can we take that back and just end on Keith?
Rewind.
Do it again. Rewind. Right, go now. Right.
I'll go first, and then we'll end on Keith.
Yeah. Cut that. Cut someone. Cut. I'll go back.
Yeah, for me, just big honor having Andy and Ben on. And Grizz, I hope he's facing the music or getting the heat on the Big Six after that intro he gave me.
I think that'll be for quite a while, to be honest. I think he'll be facing that for quite a while.
Yeah. So but yeah, cheers, boys, as well. Good chat as always. And over to you, Keith.
Keith, so just Keith, any thoughts before we finish up, mate? Just
we'll do that again. No more thoughts, no more goodbyes. This is Carnage TV, and this is now the end of the street.